Okay, Tim, we are live. Welcome,
Awesome.
everybody, to Wall Street Reporter's Investors Discovery Day live stream for January 20th, 2021. We have an exciting debut presentation for you today. AIML Innovations, AIML on the CSE. Tim Daniels is the chairman. Tim, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
So Tim, our audience, they're looking for those stocks which have that 10x to 100x upside potential, because that's what we bring them. We bring them these companies which have, companies that are going after multi-billion-dollar market opportunities. They're at a key inflection point right now, multiple catalysts in place. So what they want to know is, what is the path for AIML to be a $5 or $10 stock? Can it be a $5 and $10 stock, and how is it going to get there? So that's what we're going to find out today. And what I want to do today is we're just going to it's really just an opportunity for the audience to get to know you. And next week we're going to have you back for the full the formal presentation with the slides and everything else. But today we'll have hopefully we'll get some good Q&A. So with that said, Tim, what does AIML do exactly?
Okay. AIML is in the digital healthcare space. We have a solution, a wearable solution that is an end-to-end solution like no other that exists out there today, and we're going to disrupt the industry with it.
Okay, so what markets are you addressing, and are you? I guess the first question is: are you a hardware or are you a subscription model? What's the business model of what markets?
Sure. So it's strictly a B2B business model, and it's a subscription-based business model where we have reoccurring revenue. Our model is to partner with channel partners in the healthcare industry, including insurance companies and large companies that self-insure their employees, and we also have an e-commerce site, so for individuals who are interested in purchasing product. But our main focus is certainly on the B2B side.
Okay, so it's like it's like a SaaS subscription model.
Exactly.
And so are you now? But is your business, is it the wearables, or is it the kind of the it's the software solution? Are you? I mean, from what I understand, you can work with any wearable platform.
You're absolutely right. So we do offer an end-to-end solution. So, for example, this is one of the wearables that is partnered with our technology. Our sweet spot. What we really do is we provide the software package. And our software is all artificial intelligence based, as opposed to algorithms that drive most of the product out there, the wearable product. And the difference between an algorithm and AI solution, without boring your audience, it's the difference between a Volkswagen and a Ferrari. Algorithms will repeat the same process over and over and over. So you can feed in the data a billion times, and a billion times it'll spit out the same answer. Whereas with artificial intelligence like ours, it learns. The more information you feed into it, the smarter it gets and more intuitive it gets. And the answers that come out the other side become more tailored to the specific wearer. So there's a huge difference between artificial intelligence-based and algorithm-based. But while we're partnered with a couple different types of hardware products, we're agnostic to that. To us, that's just how the data is being aggregated, and it can be aggregated through an Apple Watch, a Google Watch, and so on and so forth, through different wearable sensors that are coming out these days. And for us, we really don't care the source of that data, as long as it's good quality data. And our sweet spot is taking that data and turning it into actionable, immediate information that the user and the user's healthcare provider and doctor and so on can use, both as part of the patient's treatment protocol and as a preventative measure to help make health choices before the problems begin.
And so what kind of, so I guess, what do you monitor for? What markets are you addressing?
Sure. So, for example, with this product here, we monitor heart rate and heart rate variability, blood pressure, ECG, the digital pulse, of course, weight and BMI, how many steps you do in a day, your sleep patterns, your activity levels, monitoring several different types of activities, and some proprietary behavioral tagging. In future generations that are just around the corner, added to that are going to be things like blood glucose monitoring, other chemicals and pharmacologicals in your system, and other goodies coming as well. So it basically all the information that when you go in to your doctor for a checkup, and the first, 15, 20 minutes of the checkup is taking your pulse and your blood pressure and all these very, very vital statistical sensory inputs that the doctor needs to help formulate an action plan for you. This does it in the same fashion, with the same degree of accuracy, with the difference being is that it's doing it for you 24 hours a day, while you're asleep, while you're at work, while you're stressed, while you're hot, after you've eaten, and so on and so forth. So for the first time, you're getting real lifetime actionable data, as opposed to the once a year checkup that most of us go to with our doctor. So you're getting far more usable data.
So who's this targeted to, and what's the business model? Like, you have like, how much is it per month per patient? How does the work?
Sure. Okay. And important to note that we've just turned on the economic side. The product went through development and beta testing and first steps of commercialization late last year, and so we've now turned that corner to commercialization. And the first step in that commercialization is we are about to announce a series of different pilot projects with some very interesting potential strategic partners who are testing out our product. And assuming those pilot projects go well, which we know they will and are, it will go to for full commercialization. So our target market is, for example, insurance companies. Also governments. Up in Canada here, we of course have the socialized medicine where the governments are paying, and the governments are very interested in products like ours that will help cut into those incredibly expensive healthcare costs that all countries are saddled with these days. And so the governments are interested, the insurance companies are interested, large corporations that self-insure are very interested, looking for ways to cut their healthcare costs and be more predictive and preventative in their employees' healthcare. For example, a company like Starbucks, they actually spend more money as a corporation on healthcare for their employees than they spend buying coffee to sell to us, the public. It's an incredibly expensive venture for companies. So they're looking for ways to help, reduce those costs going forward.
Is this now? Is for who's this geared towards? Is this for people with like chronic conditions or what?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the first and very logical markets for us is chronic patients, and by chronic patients, it might be weight management patients, it might be pregnancy, it might be diabetics. And so on and so forth. People with a history of heart disease and so on. And what those patients have come to realize over the course of this past year with the coronavirus epidemic is that the healthcare isn't guaranteed that it's going to be there when you need it. So these people were used to going on a weekly or monthly basis into their care providers prior to the COVID pandemic. And all of a sudden they were either actively being discouraged or actually being prevented from going in to see their doctors. But it didn't stop, their ongoing need. And that is what has catalyzed this growth in the digital healthcare industry. And some of the early benefactors from that were companies like Teladoc, which is basically just a glorified video chat like we're doing here right now. The problem with that, obviously, is that if I'm the doctor and you're my patient, how much data can I actually garner and understand from you and about you, through this video screen? Not that much. But you add this into the equation, and now all of a sudden, all that vital information that the doctors used to get by sitting in front of the patients, but can't anymore because of the pandemic. Now, because of this, they still have that access to that data that they need. So products like this and our solutions actually work, hand in hand with the telemedicine industry like Teladoc, and so we are the very logical progression and next step in the future of healthcare, and it's not going away once the pandemic gets behind us, because patients have realized that, hey, this works. It works great. It's far safer. It's far more convenient. From the doctor's point of view, they love it because they're able to see a lot more patients in the day. And it's now entered into the billing code system virtually in every industrialized country in the world. So the doctors are making money and they're seeing more patients per hour. And as I said, the patients love it. But there's others around the watering hole that benefit from it as well. Like, for example, if you have an elderly relative, through the course of the pandemic, you haven't been able to visit them or vice versa. By our solution, me as a relative, for my elderly mother, I can log in and get real-time data day and night, how she's doing, has she taken her meds, is her blood pressure where it should be, and so on and so forth. So it's a tremendous peace of mind and extremely beneficial to everyone who's a part of the food chain, starting with, the insurers, whether it's government or private insurer, through to the medical system, through to
there's
the
a lot
patient.
There's kind of a lot of interest in this area. So we have questions coming in through the live audience. I'm going to get to everybody's questions in just a minute. I want to ask you, the model is, what do you charge? Like, what's the model, like a revenue model? It's how much is it per month, like, how does it work?
Yeah, exactly. And so, of course, there'll be slightly modified models depending on the marketplace, depending on whether you're talking about private insurers, such as in the U.S., or government-funded insurance like Western Europe and Canada and so on. So the model will vary slightly in terms of the nominal values involved, but the model itself stays the same. And that's a revenue stream-based model where you're looking at, on average, it's going to be about a $20 to $25 per month per user model, which, as I said, will modify somewhat depending on the market that you're looking at. For individuals that want it, they'll be able to come into our website imminently. I think the e-commerce, if it's not turned on this week, it will be next week. The only reason why it's not on yet is because along with the ability for somebody to actually get a version of this, along with our end-to-end platform that goes along with it, there's a coaching platform that's being integrated with that as well for people like weight management or diabetics or pain management and so on and so forth, so that they'll be able to, in conjunction with getting the very real-time tactic feedback from our hardware and software, get some real life coaching. And so that piece of it is being integrated. And for that reason, the e-commerce isn't turned on yet. But they'll be able to come into our website and for $130 Canadian access this technology and use it going forward.
So it's $25 a month. And the data will go to whoever their health provider is.
Right. Yeah, you're right about that. And there's and of course the platform is designed in such a way that number one, it has the highest degree of security around it, so that all the medical data is well protected. Number one, and number two, as many or as few people as are required or desired can have access to that platform. So it can include, of course, your doctor or multiple doctors and other care providers as need be. It can be other family members. As I said, if you've got an elderly parent and you want to be able to have access to see what's going on with them on a daily basis, and assuming they give you access to the site, you'll be able to get in there as well.
That's a huge opportunity.
And so on. I'm sorry, what's that?
Yeah, I'll say that's a huge market opportunity in itself. People want to, be able to there's aging population and all that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I just wanted to make the point that's a lot of people will quickly try to draw the conclusion that, oh, well, you're an Apple Watch or you're a Fitbit. And we say, yeah, no, we're not by a long shot, and for several reasons. The most important being is what I just explained, is that it's an end-to-end platform that that involves everyone who needs to be, including your medical providers. Whereas, try this: go to your local Apple store and say to the 18-year-old salesman that, yeah, I'd like one of those watches, and say, what do I do with this pulse rate data that this Apple Watch provides? How do I, in a meaningful way, get that over to my doctor and into the billing system and so on? And this Apple salesman will kind of stare at you for about 20 seconds, and he'll say, would you like an iPad to go with that, sir? And that's it. It's a toy. It's a tool. Number one. Number two, as I said earlier, those products are also algorithm based, and so they're of limited ability to provide you with meaningful data. Whereas with ours, because it's artificial intelligence and machine learning driven, it learns with you, and so the more data that's fed into it, both in terms of your personal data and data that's fed in across large population sets. As the artificial intelligence absorbs more and more data, it becomes more and more intuitive the perfect analogy is take a doctor who's 6 months out of medical school versus a doctor who's been doing it for 30 years. The one guy has the experience under his belt and has that intuitive knowledge from his years of gained experience, whereas the other guy is still, thumbing through the book and says, well, according to the rule book, it says, that's the difference. And so artificial intelligence, like ours, provides you with a whole different level of knowledge and understanding. And as I said, the more you use it, the more intuitive the device will be in providing you with the outcomes that are beneficial to you as a user. And also, as I said earlier, we're agnostic as to where the data
works. I mean, your technology will work on any device. You're not a hardware company.
We're not a hardware company, and it's really important, and I'll tell you why. Because right now, out of China alone, there's well in excess of 600 different hardware companies, and the hardware is changing every few months. These biosensors that go into this device are getting smaller and faster and more powerful and applicable to a broader range of bio information from your body. And so it's important that we're not slave to one particular manufacturer or type of product, because 6 months from now, guaranteed something bigger and better will come along, and we want to be able to provide that to you as well. So for that reason, as I said, we're agnostic as to where that data is aggregated from. Just give us the data, we'll crunch it, spit it out the other end in a very immediate and usable fashion to you and your doctor.
Okay, and I think one of the key points is with the machine learning aspect, the data aspect, as sort of as you have more users on the system, as more data comes in, essentially, like any of the big data companies, actually your business becomes more valuable because now the machine learning, everything else, it's sort of like your example of the doctor who's at medical school, the guy who's been at it 30 years. The guy who's been at it 30 years, he has a massive amount of data that he's learned. He's much more effective. I mean, he can,
Absolutely, exactly right. And also,
which makes Aiml more valuable by the day as the data comes in, basically.
Perfect. That's exactly true. And not only will we be able to process the data more, let's call it intuitively, although it's artificial intelligence is well beyond just intuition, that's for sure. But not only will we be able to do it in a much better fashion, as the large amounts of data sets come in, we can continue to personalize and modify exactly what data it is that we're looking at and looking for on behalf of the patients, as we see different trends building amongst the different population sets.
So you're basically entering commercialization now. What markets are you targeting first?
So we've got some pilot projects that are starting first in parts of Canada, because the company is headquartered in Canada, along with a couple locations in the US, because of course for us, being a North American company, there's no bigger single market to focus on than the US market. We do, yeah. Go ahead.
How big is the market opportunity? Like, how big do you see the market opportunity for your devices? Actually, I shouldn't say for the device, not devices, for the service.
So we like to look at what we consider to be kind of the best in class of the wearables, even though they're not really a wearable company. and that was Lavongo. Lavongo has done some amazing things over the last 4 or 5 years that they've been around. They focus strictly on the diabetes market, and recently, I believe it was within about the last 3 months or so, Lavongo was taken over by Teladoc, and it was a massively big takeover for the health tech industry. It was about a $16.5 billion takeover at about $160 a share for Lavongo. And we've had the opportunity to study their model, their technology, and learn from them, learn what they've done well, and what we believe we can do better than Lavongo. And for example, a great deal of Lavongo's data input from their customer base on the diabetes side is it has to be done manually, whereas we have the capability to do most of what they're doing in an automatic fashion. And along with also providing, the same sort of coaching support and so on that Lavongo was able to supply to their customer base. So believe me, I'm not trying to in any way, shape, or form knock Lavongo, but when we look at their model, first of all, it's uncanny as to how similar it is to ours. Number one, and number two, yeah, we see how we can do things better. And number three, there's still a great deal of space in the diabetes market. They've just scratched the surface. And so that's obviously one of our focuses is the diabetes market. But unlike Lavongo, who have focused only on that one particular market, we also have pilots that will be underway that will extend into many, many other areas, as I said, including pregnancy and weight management and pain management and so on. So our potential market is even, substantially larger than that. But having said that, the digital healthcare market, depending on, whose report you read, there's one thing they all agree on, and that's that the digital healthcare market is, growing by large double digits every year for the next decade, and is today somewhere in the several $100 billion a year category and growing from there. So it's a huge and growing market, and it's not going away.
I think my dropped. I don't know. I think I don't know if you saw me disappear from the screen. I don't know if you there's some. I think the internet connection dropped on this end, so I may have missed like part of what you were saying. But essentially, it's what you're doing is what's the similarities between really AIML and Lavongo right now? Like how like I mean, is it exactly the same? And I think the next thing people are going to be asking, because we have a couple of companies that we work with in the healthcare space for various aspects of healthcare, like we have CloudMD, we have Skylight. They're all doing very different things, different models.
Yes.
There's multiple players doing different things. How are you? One of the big questions is going to be, how is AIML different?
Sure. Okay. First of all, we're very different from all the companies you just mentioned, such as CloudMD and so on, in that we're focused on the personal wearable space, and these other companies are not. How we're different specifically from Lavongo, which is one of the first things you asked, is that while Lavongo was aggregating all sorts of data, a great deal of that data is manually inputted by the customers themselves, and it's subject to a great deal of subjectivity. Like character tagging, how are you feeling today, and so on.
That's very unreliable.
And that's less than reliable data. And the other thing is that humans, by their nature, when you require them to do a repetitive task over and over and over, they get lazy, and one day they'll do it, the next day they won't, and so on. Right. And that's part of the problem with a model like Lavongo, is that it requires individuals to go in and on a regular basis feed in their data, and that can be problematic. Whereas with this, you go to sleep and it's feeding in the data for you. That's a huge difference. The other thing is as I said, while diabetes is certainly one market that we are focusing on, it's one of many, whereas at least to this point in time, that's been the sole focus for Lavongo. So we differ from them in several significant ways. The other companies you mentioned are not in the digital wearable space at all. So in many ways, as I gave you the example earlier on, with a lot of these companies, I don't see them as competitors to us. I see them as potential strategic partners down the road.
I think it's more of customers. Like, if you have clinics, they have doctor networks.
With Teledoc, it works great until the doctor needs some real hands-on data from that patient and can't reach through the video screen to get it. Well, we can provide that real hands-on data that the doctor is missing. So we become the missing piece that Teledoc needs to provide a real lifetime distanced patient review that they're just not getting today.
I think the obvious question is, are you a potential acquisition candidate for Teledoc?
I think we certainly are, beyond a doubt. I think we're at the early stages, and internally, the control group, the founders, I don't think we wouldn't have any interest here and now at this level. We want to develop the business into a going concern, but certainly when the time was right, we would certainly entertain an offer. And I'm a great believer that only a fool says no to an offer without hearing it first. So of course we would entertain an offer from the right partner.
Okay, so in terms of again, my internet, the internet kind of dropped off I think when I was asking with the size of the market opportunity. What in terms of dollar size, what do you see as potential? What can you be generating in terms of revenues from this? I mean, you're saying it's like around $25 a month per user.
Yeah.
How many potential users are out there, like in markets that you can address? I don't know. It's like U.S., Canada. I don't know. Are you global expansion? What's?
Yeah, and we actually, yes, beyond North America, we've already been in dialogue with some potential strategic partners who can give us very quick access to markets such as Western Europe, South America, and so on. So we do have designs on taking this global as quickly as we possibly can. And as I was saying earlier, when I guess there was some video trouble. Depending on whose numbers you look at and believe, the one thing all the different experts who are prognosticating the size of the digital healthcare model agree upon is that the market is growing by double digits and will continue to do so for the next decade or more. And today is worth somewhere in the $250 billion a year and growing range. So it's an incredibly large and growing market. And we know that from some of the projections that we've done internally, we're looking at the classic hockey stick shaped growth curve. That's an image for if you have any Canadian viewers out there, they would understand what I'm talking about. But a very steep curve, and that we are looking at numbers that that top out over the course of the first couple of years, certainly well north of 10 million a year in revenue. On the conservative side, and the ability to vastly exceed those numbers.
So you said 10. Like, how fast can you get to 10 million? Because that would be kind of the first milestone, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we view this year, 2021, as our building year. This is where we want to get a number of pilot projects underway with different potential strategic partners and users in different marketplaces, with the first of those revenue streams to reflect back to us by the second half of this year. But by next year, by 2022, we expect to see the explosive growth rates that we're talking about here.
So you're saying that 2021, you're going to start. I mean, you're entering commercialization now. The first sales will start, showing up on your earnings the second half of the year?
Yes.
Okay. And do you think you could do 10 million revenues in this year, the next 12 months, this 21?
2021 is a possibility for sure. We've tried to keep our numbers conservative, and so we've projected that out into next year, feeling that if we're able to exceed our numbers, nobody will be angry at us if we do better than what we expected. And so we're trying to keep expectations low and modest and realistic for this year, but looking for explosive growth into 2022 for sure.
Okay. Let's say once you're kind of getting some momentum, what what potential, I mean, could you do 100 million revenues? Like, how long would it take you to scale up to the 100 million level?
Again, difficult to say, because that requires us to do some serious crystal ball gazing, and that's always
not even yeah, I'm saying, like, if you can get to 1 million users, if you can have 1 million users on your system, which is not a lot, because we have 7 billion people on the planet. There's a couple billion like in the developed world which has internet at least, right? So how fast can you get to, do you think, 1 million users? How would you get there? Could you do partnerships with the insurance companies, governments? Because if you're doing 1 million users, that's 25 million a month or so, no?
Sure, and that's exactly our intention, is partnering with both private and public insurance companies, and believe me when I tell you that with some of the pilot projects that are about to occur, they're with global enterprises that that service certain market segments, certain types of diseases and products globally, and if they're happy with the outcome of these pilot projects and want to implement globally the kinds of numbers that you and I are talking here are peanuts compared to what the potential size is. It's absolutely staggering.
Okay.
So that's that's the diplomatic way of answering you.
Let's jump into some audience questions. A lot of people asking, when are you going to start trading in the U.S. market?
Right. Okay. We're working towards that now. We've got the paper flow, the documentation flow happening. My best guess is it's probably 2 to 3 more weeks away from completion. So we'll keep your viewers informed about that.
Okay, so 2 to 3 weeks till OTC. Okay, so that gives the Canadians an opportunity to kind of front run the American buying. Okay, so and we've answered the question about the Lavongo. We've talked about that. Let's see here. We got here's a very interesting question. Haley's asking people to monetize data to insurance companies, because I guess there's you're getting a lot of data. I mean, this could be used for, like, I don't know, actuarial table, all sorts of. I mean, also it's almost like I know they have, like, I think an insurance car insurance thing I have. They give you a device. I don't know if you have that. The device, you stick that somewhere in your car, and they can see if you're speeding, what times you're driving. Do you brake? That could be. Could this be something similar?
Yeah, absolutely. Beyond a doubt, the data being aggregated is incredibly valuable. Now, of course, in different jurisdictions, there are different regulatory requirements protecting that data, and so of course that has to be carefully observed. But in regions where that data can be monetized, beyond a doubt, that's a revenue stream that we've had those conversations. We've not at this point included that in any sort of our revenue projections, and it would just be a happy bonus. But clearly the data is very valuable to employers, to insurance companies. Yeah, so clearly there's the potential to monetize that intelligence in certain marketplaces when the time is right. But our projections today don't take that into account at all.
Okay. So we get a question. Morpheus asking, how accurate are your devices compared to traditional, physical, the actual readings you get at a doctor's office?
Sure. Okay. So 2 answers to it. First of all, you can go down to your local Walgreens and pick up, the blood pressure cuff. And like most people, you'll use it 3 or 4 times and then throw it in your closet and never use it again. And it'll cost you, whatever they cost these days. I've got one in my closet that I haven't used forever. Well, I can tell you this device, oops, I got to go this way with it. This device here, combined with our artificial intelligence, is actually substantially more accurate for providing that blood pressure reading than what that cuff that you bought at Walgreens will provide. So that's number 1. It's incredibly accurate. But number 2, you'll actually use it because it's right here. So
you use it because you don't have to do anything. You just put it on. That's it.
Right, and you can use it while you're exercising, or while you're sleeping, or while you're stressed on the job, and so on. And so you're getting real life feedback as opposed to a cuff that's sitting up in your closet that you never use. That's number 1. But number 2, compared to, let's say, the going into the doctor's office. The problem with going into the doctor's office is that, of course, the doctor's giving you extremely accurate readouts with whatever the doctor's doing. How often do you go into your doctor's office? If you're like most of us, it's once a year, maybe less. So are you really getting real-time feedback from that one-time visit? And I'll give you, here's a real life example. I went to my doctor, and this was a couple of years ago. I'm a squash player, and I had just gotten off the court from a squash match, and I was late, and I hurried to the doctor's office, and it was a hot day, and I got in there, and I was hot and tired and stressed and so on. And the doctor throws on the blood pressure cuff and says, "Oh my God, we got to get you on some meds. Your blood pressure is really high." But I can tell you that my blood pressure is not high at all. It's dead on about 110/70. It's considered perfect. But in that one scenario where I happened to be in the doctor's office because of the situation that I was in, it was a false reading. It was a bad reading because of the circumstances. And that's the problem, is that how accurate are the results that you're getting? Not because your situation was like mine that particular day, but because it was a one-time-a-year reading in your doctor's office that was a snapshot at that particular moment. But was that snapshot really representative of what your vital signs look like all day long? Isn't it important to know what your blood pressure is while you're asleep, or while you're exercising, or while you're hot, or while you're stressed? Absolutely it is. Well, this device will do that combined with our platform. Unless you can go into the doctor's office under all those scenarios 50 times a day, no, you're not getting as meaningful data out of the doctor even as you are from our device. So there's your answer.
I think we're really I think the real kind of the secret sauce here, which is like the obvious, that this is basically, it's very easy, it's idiot proof for anybody to use. I mean, they just put this on, they don't have to do anything else. I mean,
yeah, there's two pieces.
Otherwise, that's it.
Yeah, exactly. There's two pieces to the feedback data. One, which is an app on your phone, and it's either on an Android device or Apple device. We're agnostic that way, and that's extremely user friendly. Anybody can pick it up, and without ever having used our products before, can get meaningful real-time feedback that means something to them. That's one piece of it. The other piece of it is our cloud platform, which is accessible by your doctor, that has your EKG readout and your PPG readout and all these other medical grade readouts, to the same as if you were sitting in your doctor's office. And that is designed for a medical professional. So we immediately provide the two sets of data on every readout that's taken, one that any of your viewers could access and instantly get that hey, things are good, things are not so good with my numbers, and the other set that are far more technical that your doctor can make sense of and really use in an actionable way to get you on the right path to wellness.
Okay, Ramsey is asking, Tim, I think you answered this. So does your AI only work on your hardware, or are you able to layer onto other brand wearables? So in case anybody's just joining in, if you can expect.
Yeah, sure. Yes, yes, in that we can access data from multiple sources. Again, we're hardware agnostic. We do have our branded wearable digitals that we like. We think they're really good products, and they provide a broad spectrum of data that you and your care providers would find very useful. However, we're hardware agnostic. We don't care the source of the data as long as it's high quality usable data that we feed into our artificial intelligence and spit out the results on the other end. So it was important for us to design technology that would be actionable regardless of the source of the data, provided that it's high quality data coming in the front end.
Okay. Jeremy's asking, is what kind of patent protection do you have?
We're at patent pen stage throughout North America, and advancing towards a full patent on our end-to-end technology. We have the exclusive rights to do what we do, how we do it. The three pieces, from the aggregation of the data to the apps on your phone, and through to a cloud platform that is also accessible on your phone, but computer accessible as well, so your doctors can get it and so on. So we have patent pending on the end-to-end solution.
Okay, so we got two questions that are related. Will the device, the wearable, and the software, can this work anywhere in the world? And then we have a question about what are your plans to expand globally?
Yes. So yes, number one, it works anywhere in the world. The wearable device and the app on your phone are linked by Bluetooth, and so as long as they're in proximity to each other, that data is fed in to the app on your phone, and from your phone, that data goes to our cloud platform. As long as you've got internet access, and from there you've got that data locked in globally. So if you happen to be traveling throughout Western Europe and you're not feeling quite right, and you want to send some data back to your doctor in Florida, yeah, it's no problem. It's all accessible globally. That was number one. Number two, sorry, what was
Plans for global expansion?
Sorry? Oh, globalization, yes. And the answer again, it was yes. And we discussed that briefly earlier, where we've got some dialogue discussions going on with some potential strategic partners who have good market access in Western Europe and in South America, which are two obvious markets for us. And Western Europe, like North America, has implemented laws whereby insurers must cover digital treatments and visits under the billing system as if it was live. And that's the same scenario in North America. So it's been fully accepted and adopted throughout Europe. Most of South America is on that same model as well.
Okay. Yeah, interesting question. Landon is asking, can you discover if somebody has sleep apnea with this device? That's a big market, the sleep apnea stuff.
Yeah, it certainly is. And very early in my presentation, I had mentioned some of the different features that we're able to deal with, and I mentioned heart rate variability, blood pressure, and so on. And I did say sleep, monitoring sleep activity, and I didn't go into specifics on that. But yes, what it's able to do is monitor your sleep patterns and give some very visual and massageable, usable data showing your sleep patterns through the course of the night, and which parts of the night you were in a light sleep pattern versus a deep sleep versus when you were awake, and so on. And so you can see when you've had episodes of your apnea that have come into play over the course of the night, and it can give you some real time actionable feedback on that. So absolutely.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, so we got okay, here's a question. Marcel's asking, if someone wearing the device had a heart attack, could it send a notification somewhere? Maybe even with location,
Yeah. That's not a feature that we've got built into it right now. It certainly is something that would be real easy to add, and it makes perfect sense. So thank you to your viewer, for that idea, and that's something I'm going to discuss with our development team, because clearly we can see when the events are happening. Now, the people in your information chain also have access to that. So, for example, if my elderly mother were to have a heart attack, and I were logged in onto the platform and looking at her data, I could clearly see that. But at this point, we haven't designed into it an alarm, for lack of a better word. But that's something that we should look at. That would make perfect sense.
Yeah, it seems really like it's a huge opportunity, because like right now you're saying for chronic health issues, but really when it comes to I guess the elderly, I mean, that is a chronic health condition. Once you're like, let's say, over 75, realistically, I mean, there's a lot of things you want. I mean, you want to monitor your health. Your family wants to monitor, and listen, people, it's just. So in theory, I mean, again, this is like theoretically, anybody who's over, let's call it, the age of 70 could be a customer for for Health Gauge, for Aiml Gauge.
Completely. And again, I give you a real life scenario on why insurance companies are extremely interested in this product as a preventative tool, as getting feedback and data prior to the event, not just somebody had a heart attack, let's call 911, which again is a useful feature, but it's even more useful to have some data.
You can see the trend early on. You can catch it, a month in advance.
Clearly, and so, for example, a friend of mine who is in very good shape, and one day after playing squash, went home for the evening and felt a little tightness in his chest, and it didn't go away. And so, long story short, is he ended up overnight in emergency in the intensive care unit, being monitored for a potential heart attack. Well, the good news is that it wasn't a heart attack. And so, a day later, after observation, he was released. Fortunately for him, he had, good private insurance, so it didn't cost him anything. But he got a look at the bill, and it was staggering. It was well north of $100,000. Well north. $100,000. And so when we talk to insurers, their interest in a device that they can throw on to their high risk customers, for example, as a starting point, but eventually all of their customers, for $25 a month, and actually give some actionable feedback and input prior to the event, prior to a heart attack happening. It's a whole lot cheaper for the insurance company and the patient to deal with it before the fact and after the fact. So they see that as a negligible cost. And of course, at the end of the day, they just pass that cost onto their customer base anyway through their insurance fees. But even if they didn't, it's a whole lot cheaper for them to pay us $25 a month and help prevent a heart attack than paying out the cost to the healthcare providers after a heart attack happens. So
yeah. I mean, it's really very similar to that. The thing we talked about, which is like, car insurance, where they give you that device, you stick that in monitors, and then, they could, in theory, lower your rate or increase the rate depending on, how they see you're driving, and, give you whatever. Yeah. So, but, so it's a really interesting opportunity here that, you have for the, health.
I'll give you another example. We have, one organization who's looking shortly to do a pilot project for us, and they are a very big transportation company, trucking company, and at any given point in time they have thousands upon thousands of drivers out on the road who are, pulling long days and nights and so on. And for the company to know by having, a device like this, so that they're able to monitor the well-being of that guy behind the wheel while he's been on the road for the 14th hour straight. Yeah, you bet. They're extremely interested, and so we've got a pilot project that'll be underway under that sort of scenario shortly with a trucking company.
Okay, no, this is some very
yeah.
some interesting. So I think there's a company, I don't know if they have it in Canada. There's a device, I know in the US they market this to the elderly, where if you fall, you press a thing and it notifies somebody that can you do that with your device?
Again, at this point, that's not something that we've looked at. It certainly is doable. There are several competitors in that industry today that I think are doing a fairly good job at that. So I'm not really sure, what sort of barriers of entry there would be to that specific market as a standalone market, but as a tag-along product, as part of the package of products that we're able to offer, it very well might make sense. So it is something that we should be looking at. Step at a time. We've just rounded that corner to commercialization. So there's these are examples. Your viewers are bringing up some beautiful examples of future potential revenue streams that we can look to monetize.
It's very interesting. I mean, really, you have. I mean, I don't know. You mentioned 10 million revenue. That's kind of your initial milestone. I think you're being very modest. I mean, this, in theory, this could be a multi-billion-dollar company, because I mean the market we're addressing, these are multi-billion-dollar opportunities, and what's most important, I think, is that the take-up rate, the adoption rate could be very easy, because again, all somebody has to do is just put this on. They don't have to think about it. So it makes it very easy to get people to do this. And, if somebody's elderly, there's a lot of people, the family members who'd want them to use it. They will want to use it. You have, like you mentioned, the example of the truck drivers. That's something where, the carriers, they have massive liability issues that this would alleviate. I mean, there's a lot of potential uses for the service. It's just, you have that SaaS model, so you got that beautiful subscription revenue coming in, recurring revenue. Once this gets rolling, you have the big data aspect. Wow, I mean, Tim, I think I'm selling it too much for you. I mean, I like everything you're doing.
You're doing my job for me. Thank you.
When can I go to work for you? Okay. This is so we got actually, okay, so very interesting kind of, so Lavongo blew. I mean, Lavongo, what the history of Lavongo? I mean, how that company, when was it started? What was the time from start to exit, from before it was bought out, and what was the size? I mean, what was the whole? Hemi, do you have the data? I guess maybe Tim, you have the data on that.
So Lavongo has been around for about 5 years now, and of course, as a private company, difficult to get meaningful revenue data and so on from them. But you can judge by the size of the transaction when they were taken over by Teladoc, how they were doing to make it worth Teladoc's while to pay as much as Teladoc did, because the transaction was I believe $18.5 billion transaction, and Lavongo, which had gone public prior to the takeover by Teladoc, was the transaction occurred at about $159 a share. so clearly their revenue was the classic hockey stick that I mentioned earlier, shape revenue pattern, where they built it over the first couple of years, and then it just it boomed. It just absolutely blossomed. Even though they've only scratched the surface of the diabetes market, and they were only in the U.S. They have no operations or revenue streams outside of the U.S. at all, and have just accessed a couple percentage points of the diabetes market in the U.S. So they, what they did very, very well, for sure. But as I said, we see things where we know that we can improve upon their model, in that a lot of their subjective inputs, ours are far more objective because it's being done on your behalf, by a wearable device coupled with artificial intelligence, as opposed to you, the user, manually entering in data that you may or may not do accurately.
Yeah, I think, Tim, what's interesting is that Lavongo was a diabetes play, which diabetes, I guess, a big market, but you're covering much wider market, and I think we have here somebody actually did some math. Somebody took out a calculator, Ramsey, with a calculator of North American population. We got about 400 million in North America, Canada, US, right? So $25 a month.
Yeah.
4 million people is $100 million a month potential revenues, North America. I mean, 4 million is not a lot of people, actually. That's, so let's say you get only, a million. Let's say you get a million people, 25 million a month, 300 million. Well, if you do 300 million a month in recurring revenue in today's market, health tech, that's worth, forget about it. It's worth like 30x, 10 billion. It'll be a $10 billion. The upside is $10 billion. If you
let's just say you can hire somebody to count your money for you, because you'll have enough of it. No, for sure. There's incredibly huge upside potential, and I think that's what some of your viewers are starting to click in on here is that use your imagination. The sky's the limit. Clearly, and so yes, we've been very modest in our projections, and we believe that we will, dramatically, greatly have the ability to exceed those projections. So.
Okay. So here's an interesting question. I think one of the things that I think investors will want to track, like to see the progress, because we want to see milestones, all that, is how would they, are you going to be putting out announcements on a regular basis of how many users you have on the platform?
We can, to the extent that the user, the strategic partner. Remember, the user in our model is the payer, the insurance company or the government, and so on. And as long as they're not opposed to that level of data being disclosed, of course we will. No doubt about it. And I don't anticipate that'll be a problem. I imagine they'll be fine with us at least disclosing that level of disclosure. So I don't see that being a problem.
Tim, I want to ask you, how many shares standing right now, fully diluted?
Sorry, you cut out for a minute. Say again.
How many shares fully diluted?
Okay, I got it. Again, you froze up a little bit, but I got it. You were asking about our share structure. We have 22 million shares outstanding right now. Of that, about half of them are free trading. So approximately 11. I think it's 11.4 million free trading and another 11 million that are restricted. And of the free trading position, about 11.4 million, the cost base on roughly 50% of those 11.4 million is about $6 a share. And that's because it was an existing shell that we took over and cleaned up and rolled back. And by the time we finished the consolidation of the stock, the existing shareholders were left with about $6 a share paper. So there's very little resistance in our market. I think the other thing that's really important to point out is the structure that we did with the original founding group who developed the technology that we're talking about here. So the parent company, our public company, is called Aiml, which stands for Artificial Intelligence Machine Learning, because that's our area of focus. And the operating company that we took over is called HealthGauge, which is also the name of the product itself. And the founders of HealthGauge, when we were negotiating this transaction with them to fold their company into ours, they had their projections going forward as to what they thought the revenue streams would look like, what the growth patterns would look like, and so on. And I said to them, look, guys, I'm not going to try to arm wrestle with you on this because it's all academic. You have your projections, I can come up with my projections, and we can argue all day long whose projections are better. But what I'm going to ask you to do is to put your money where your mouth is. And what I mean by that is, I said, well, I'll accept your projections at face value, but so do you have to do that. And they say, what do you mean? And I say, well, what I mean is that we will issue you 3 million shares for 70% interest in your company. If you meet your revenue projections, then you get another 7 million shares as a bonus. If you don't meet those projections, we keep the 70% of your company for the 3 million shares that we gave you. They said, done. Where do we sign? They didn't hesitate. And to me, that was a really important acid test, knowing that they were confident enough in their own projections to literally put their money where their mouth was and backload their bonusing on this deal tied to the revenue stream. So if they're as successful as they believe that they would be, they've got another 7 million shares waiting for them. If they don't meet those numbers, they don't get it. And they know that, and they were completely happy with that sort of a structure. So okay. That gave me confidence that it was a deal that we should seriously look at doing with them.
Yeah, no, I was just doing some math here. So it's actually pretty interesting. So if you get 100,000, I mean, tell me if this is right. If you get 100,000 users, 100,000 users, 25 bucks per month each. So that's 2.5 million a month revenues recurring, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So the market right now, the health tech market is again, look at the multiples are eye-popping. It's 30x plus, depending on the acceleration, the velocity. So I would say it would not be outlandish to even have a 40x, multiple on something like this. If you can get, in other words, if you can get to 100,000 users paying that 25 bucks a month, let's call it in the next 18 months, that would be $1 billion valuation at 40x. So, let's say you have 100 million shares outstanding, 18 months from now, divided by 100 million is 10 bucks a share. I mean, so can you get 100,000?
So two things. Number one, can we do 100,000 users a month? Absolutely, we can. Number two, I can't envision any scenario where we've got 100 million shares outstanding. Yeah, so sure. So no, and that's how I like to do my calculations as well. I like to be conservative, and if the numbers still look good, then I'm happy, knowing that I've got a good shot at exceeding those conservative projections. So yeah,
So if it's 50 million shares out, the stock would be $20.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, I
Exactly.
don't know, 10, 20, what difference does it make? It's like,
Yeah. Yeah, there comes a point where it becomes academic, for sure. And are those doable? Absolutely, they are. There's no doubt about it. That numbers like that are not even scratching the surface of the market. You know what I mean? It's the scraps off the table to generate numbers like that in terms of the size of the potential market for products like ours. So is it doable? You bet. You bet.
so yeah, so interesting comments. Yeah, in terms of healthcare in the U.S. I mean, this is the prevention, all that stuff. I mean, this is definitely you're in the right place at the right time. Wrap this up. I know we were running a little bit late here. I want to have get work here the stock to to $20. What in terms of news flow coming up? What do you have? What kind of milestones do you have coming up in the next 3 months?
Okay. So I think the most important news, we've got a series of news releases, planned out already to keep us in the in the public's mind. And certainly over the next 3 months, we've got some exciting pilot projects and partnerships that we'll be announcing and discussing, as well as stay tuned for some other acquisitions that we're working on as well.
Okay.
Very nicely with this technology.
Okay. What kind of acquisitions are you looking at?
For another show.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned, as they say. Okay. Very interesting. So let's see. My last question. We'll get you back next week for the slideshow. Is this is the question we always ask CEOs is at the end. In your opinion, top 3 reasons why investors should consider AI/ML today.
Sure. Okay. We're in, a large and growing market. We have, disruptive leading edge technology that's patent protected, and we're rounding the corner today into the revenue streams, and they're going to be substantial, just as we've been discussing here. So we're going to improve the fundamentals of this company, dramatically over the upcoming months and years, to the benefit of the shareholders.
Okay, excellent. On that note, Tim, I want to thank you. Thank you everybody for joining us. Apologies for the technical difficulties we had. There was a couple of technical issues, internet otherwise, throughout the show. Actually, next week we'll catch up with Tim. Everybody watching for more details.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you again, Tim.